Hello. Welcome to my channel, please like and subscribe. A young priestess joins a group of inexperienced adventurers who decide to raid a goblin-infested cave. Things quickly go wrong when the inexperienced party is ambushed by goblins, resulting in the deaths, rapes, or capture of all but the priestess. The priestess is rescued by the arrival of Goblin Slayer, who swiftly kills the goblins attacking her. She decides to follow Goblin Slayer deeper into the cave, where he kills more goblins and teaches her about their psychology and battle tactics. Goblin Slayer is able to kill the remaining goblins, including a goblin shaman and a hobgoblin, with the assistance of the priestess. They then discover several goblin infants, which Goblin Slayer mercilessly kills to prevent them from becoming threats in the future. Despite the traumatic experience, the priestess decides to join Goblin Slayer as his adventuring companion. Goblin Slayer accompanies his childhood friend Cowgirl to the city to sell her uncle's farm produce. He later goes to the Adventurers Guild to find work, where he is treated as an outcast by the other adventurers due to his low-quality armor and habit of only accepting goblin-related quests despite his high ranking. Nonetheless, Guild Girl appreciates his dedication to goblin annihilation, as most adventurers avoid goblin quests due to their low bounties, and those who do are frequently inexperienced. Cowgirl continues to support her friend despite her uncle's warnings, as she wishes to apologize to him for not bringing him with her to the city on the day before the goblins attacked their village. Later, Goblin Slayer and Priestess attack a fortress occupied by goblins, burning it down and preventing the goblins from escaping. Elsewhere, a high elf and her companions are looking for an adventurer named Orkbolg. High elf archer, dwarf shaman, and lizard priest ask Guild Girl for an adventurer called Orkbolg and Beard Cutter, actually referring to Goblin Slayer in their race's native tongues. While Goblin Slayer is speaking with the trio, Priestess is defended by Witch, a Goblin Slayer acquaintance, when some rookie adventurers try to persuade Priestess to abandon Goblin Slayer and join them, assuming he is only using Priestess as bait. High Elf Archer informs Goblin Slayer that their races have banded together with the human kingdoms to fight the resurrected Demon Lord's army and that they wish to hire him for a related quest. As the group makes camp and enjoys their race's food, a drunken High Elf Archer berates Goblin Slayer for his rude behavior while the others talk about where goblins came from. The next day, a High Elf Archer kills the goblin sentries at the ruins and the group enters. Goblin Slayer's group enters the ruins where he notices there are no totems, suggesting these goblins are not led by a shaman. After rescuing an elven prisoner tortured by goblins, an angry High Elf Archer vows to avenge her fellow kin. The group finds a hall where the goblins are resting. Goblin Slayer's group kills the sleeping goblins without alerting the others by using sleeping and silence spells. Their silence, however, alerts the goblins' leader, an ogre who is one of the Demon Lord's generals. The ogre attacks the group using his strength and fire magic and proves difficult to kill due to his large size and ability to heal quickly. As elvish reinforcements arrive to take over the ruins and Goblin Slayer's group heads back to the city, the experience she had with Goblin Slayer and his obsession make High Elf Archer want to take Goblin Slayer on a proper adventure. After recovering from his wounds, Goblin Slayer helps Cowgirl cart supplies to the town. There, he meets High Elf Archer, Dwarf Shaman, and Lizard Priest, and tells them he is open to the idea of exploring some ruins with them. Priestess informs him that she has been promoted to the next adventurer rank and expresses her heartfelt gratitude to Goblin Slayer for saving her life. He then meets two young adventurers who have lost their swords in the sewers and advises them to use a club as an improvised weapon to recover them. Guild Girl asks him to act as an observer on a promotion exam, where she punishes a Rhea scout for stealing loot from his party. The Rhea scout considers attacking Guild Girl but is dissuaded by Goblin Slayer's presence. Meanwhile, the two young adventurers manage to recover the sword thanks to Goblin Slayer's advice. Goblin Slayer then receives a special goblin slaying request from Sword Maiden herself. 10 years ago, a group of heroes, including Sword Maiden, slew the original Demon Lord. Currently, in another part of the world, the new hero and her companions slay the resurrected Demon Lord and crush his army, though some generals remain on the loose. Goblin Slayer and the rest of the party journey to Water Town, where they meet Sword Maiden, now retired. Sword Maiden informs them there has been a string of violent murders in the town recently, and they suspect the culprits are goblins in the town's sewer system. She decided to contact Goblin Slayer because the army refused to mobilize to fight goblins and other adventurers had failed. Goblin Slayer accepts the quest and leads the party into the sewers, where they discover the goblins have learned to navigate the sewers using boats. As they return to the surface, Goblin Slayer is troubled by the fact that the goblins knew how to use boats but were unaware of the alligator, leading him to believe that the goblins were placed in the sewers by someone. After a brief rest in town, Goblin Slayer and his party venture back into the sewers to investigate the source of the goblins. As a precaution, Goblin Slayer brings along a canary to warn them of any poison gas. The party ventures deeper into the sewers, only to be led into a trap and imprisoned in a tomb. The goblins also start pumping poison gas into the room, which the canary warns the party about, and they successfully seal off the vents to keep the gas out. The Goblin Champion critically wounds Goblin Slayer and attacks Priestess as the goblins overwhelm the rest of the party. Motivated by Priestess' screams, Goblin Slayer regains consciousness and attacks the Goblin Champion from behind, tearing his right eye out in the process. The Goblin Champion and his minions flee, giving the party the chance to regroup. Priestess' wounds are healed, but Goblin Slayer collapses from his own wounds. Goblin Slayer wakes in the Temple of Law, having been healed with a resurrection miracle. Sword Maiden confides in Goblin Slayer she had been captured, raped, and tortured by goblins 10 years ago, which is the source of her scars and partial blindness, and that despite being one of the heroes who slew the Demon King, she is still deathly afraid of goblins. The next day, the whole party heads back to the sewers and finds a room guarded by a powerful demon. Goblin Slayer spreads the fine flour-filled package around the room to create a dust explosion. After the demon is killed by the explosion, the party investigates the mysterious mirror it was guarding. The party discovers the mirror is actually a gate linking the sewers of Water Town with the Green Moon, allowing goblins to enter. As Lizard Priest works to remove the mirror from the wall, the rest of the party repels the goblin counterattack led by the Goblin Champion. Once the mirror is loose, Goblin Slayer has the party take shelter under it while Dwarf Shaman collapses the roof. All of the goblins are crushed, but the mirror protects the party, leaving them unscathed. Goblin Slayer merely replies he cannot save her from her trauma, but he will kill goblins if she asks him, even in her dreams, which seems to alleviate her worries. On the way back to their town, Goblin Slayer tells the rest of the party he plans on making ice treats, and the party promise to help him. The hero's defeat of the Demon Lord and his army is confirmed and she becomes the 10th person ever to achieve a platinum rank. Festivities are held across the land. Meanwhile, Goblin Slayer continues his daily chores and accompanies Cowgirl to the town to get his armor repaired. When he meets the rest of his party, they invite him out for lunch, and he sees veteran adventurers training rookie adventurers. Cowgirl and Guild Girl also join. During the meal, Guild Girl mentions that the guild has begun a program in which retired adventurers train rookie adventurers, allowing retired adventurers to keep their jobs and rookie adventurers to have a better chance of survival. Cowgirl is curious whether Goblin Slayer will ever retire. That night, Cowgirl shares a moment with Goblin Slayer and tells him he should think about his future. Going to bed, she reflects on the fact Goblin Slayer can't kill goblins forever, and wonders what will happen when that time comes. The next day, Goblin Slayer does his daily patrol around the farm and discovers goblin footprints. Goblin Slayer concludes that a horde of over 100 goblins will attack the farm soon. He warns Cowgirl he cannot fight that many goblins in the open and urges her to run, but she refuses to abandon her home for a second time. Goblin Slayer heads to town to ask the other adventurers for help. The adventurers are warned by Goblin Slayer that the horde is being led by a Goblin Lord, a highly intelligent goblin who specializes in leadership. He devises a successful strategy for the adventurers to combat the horde, and the first few waves of goblins are easily defeated. The Goblin Lord then sends a number of hobgoblins and goblin champions at the adventurers and attempts to flee, but is intercepted by Goblin Slayer. While the veteran adventurers slay the hobgoblins and goblin champions, Goblin Slayer fights the Goblin Lord alone but is defeated. When the Goblin Slayer is about to be killed, the Priestess casts 2 protection spells, trapping the Goblin Lord. After killing all of the goblins and securing the farm, the adventurers return to the guild to celebrate, where Goblin Slayer confides to Cowgirl that he has developed an interest in becoming an adventurer. In the epilogue, Priestess narrates that Goblin Slayer is just another pawn on the board to the gods, but the gods have taken an interest in him due to his refusal to let the gods roll the dice on his actions, meaning his fate is completely unknown to them. She then remarks Goblin Slayer is still out there fighting.